Hi, this is Steve Borkenhagen. I am the Executive Director of Urban Confluence Silicon Valley. We're really happy that many of you are joining us today. The point of today's meeting is to give you a up-to-the-minute report on the Diridon Station Area Plan and on the Google Downtown West Plan. And joining us and presenting today will be Nicolle Burnham. Nicolle is a deputy director at the Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services Department, has been a partner of ours from the inception of our project, which has been 3 or 4 years. We've had an immense number of meetings. Our location is Arena Green, which is a city park. So at every turn, we work with the Parks Department and with Nicolle in particular to make sure that everything we're doing is consistent with what the city wants as the owner of the park. So with that, I'll say thank you and turn it over to Nicolle Burnham. Thank you, Nicolle.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. So everyone is able to see this screen?
Yes.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So I'm going to walk through a couple of different elements. First of all, just kind of give an overview of parks around Arena Green area, just an orientation for those folks that are here with us. And then I will talk about the Diridon Station Area Plan and what that means, and the Google project, or Downtown West as it's also known. This is pretty high level information. I'll also point you to some websites where you can find additional information about both of those projects. So I just wanted to spend a minute before we jump in, kind of orienting everybody. So we have Highway 87 here running north-south. This is Arena Green, this area that I'm outlining here. SAP Center is pretty commonly known, I think, to everybody who's familiar with Arena Green. The Alameda and West Santa Clara Street runs major east-west connector through the area, and with San Jose City Hall being here. Our convention center is down here. Diridon Station is here. And you'll see as we go through the presentation that the proximity of all of these places to each other plays a really important role in what we're talking about for the future of this area.
Nicolle, may I interrupt for just a moment? Sure. I'm really sorry, but I think I forgot to mention for everyone to use the Q&A function on the screen. Yeah. You will not be able to interrupt Nicolle's presentation, which will last 20 to 30 minutes. But any questions you have or comments, please put them in Q&A. And then as soon as Nicolle's finished with her presentation, I will ask those questions of Nicolle. Sorry to bother you, Nicolle. Thanks.
Sure. So just in terms of, I wanted to spend a little bit of time orienting folks on our existing park facilities. And I have 2 slides of this. The first one is about our trail system. San Jose has one of the largest urban trail networks in the country. Our goal is 100 miles of paved trail being built out. We've been working on fulfilling that goal for over 20 years. Right now we have about 63 miles that's built. So in, as you can see, it's probably a little bit tough to see, but in orange, this is Guadalupe River Trail, and it often runs both east and west side of the river. It follows the Guadalupe River and extends not only through here and Arena Green, but you can take this trail all the way to Alviso. Once you're in Alviso, you can actually connect to the San Francisco Bay Trail. So this is a really important, our trail network provides incredible connectivity around the whole Bay Area. And one of the things we're working on through the projects, and the Diridon Station Area Plan, is connecting. So this is Los Gatos Creek connector and the Los Gatos Creek Trail. Los Gatos Creek Trail Los Gatos Creek itself intersects with Guadalupe River here at what we call Confluence Point. This trail network actually can take you all the way to Los Gatos, and if you use off-road trails, to Lexington Reservoir. We have built out much of it, but there has been a gap remaining from San Carlos Street, West San Carlos Street, all the way to Santa Clara. So you'll see some through both the Google project as well as through the Diridon Station Area Plan, we're seeking to close this gap. This is a really important gap closure for us. And then in terms of parks in the area, of course, we have Arena Green, smack in the middle of this area that is the subject of the Urban Confluence project. What we call Guadalupe River Park extends from Discovery Meadow down here at the bottom of this graphic, and it actually extends all the way up to the airport. So it's a large linear park system. It's our largest in the downtown. It is surrounded by a number of smaller, very urban parks. So if you remember, I'm going to show you in a minute some graphics of our downtown area, but this is the core of San Jose's downtown, City Hall Plaza, St. James Park. These are all existing parks. So this is our oldest park in the city, Plaza de Cesar Chavez, highly activated park, a lot of concerts, so a fair amount of hardscape. This area here to the east of Highway 87 and north of Julian Street, or surrounding by Julian Street, north and south, is an area called North San Pedro, and it's former industrial area that is that's rapidly redeveloping into residential. And so we have new parks coming in there, and Cahill Park, also over here to the west of Dearden Station, plays an important role. But you can also see that as we come into the west area of the city, we really don't have a lot of parks. There's not a lot of parkland over here. So it makes that Guadalupe River Park a really important green connector through the city. When in Parks and Rec, when we're working through prioritizing projects and understanding projects, we rely on a strategic plan that we developed and published. It got approved in December of 2019. It outlines 5 guiding principles that help us with our decision making. The first of those is stewardship, taking care of what we have and managing it as effectively as we can, even if that means finding creative ways to do that by working with partners. Nature, providing access to nature and promoting outdoor spaces that are accessible for everyone. Equity and access, making sure we have spaces that are available for everyone regardless of ability and background. Identity, how do we use our park system and recreation facilities to create an identity for the city of San Jose? And public life, we play an important role in activation of our parks as well as our downtown and throughout the city through programs like Viva Calle and Viva Parks. So these are the kind of the things we think about regularly when we're thinking about projects. Then I'm going to flip for a minute and talk about into more the Dearden Station area plan. And I'll show you the Dearden Station area plan area in a moment. But this is just a generalized image that again, so this is Highway 87 and this is 280. This is the Dearden Station and SAP, you can see in white here. And really when we're talking about the Dearden Station area plan, what we're talking about is integrating this Dearden area that's shown in green with our existing downtown, finding ways to make sure these spaces are well interconnected and that both have lively, high density urban development. One of the reasons that the Dearden area is a significant focus point of ours is because Dearden Station has a lot going on. We have a lot going on transportation wise in San Jose. There is transit planning here between Caltrain, high-speed rail, VTA, things like BART coming through, the expansion of high-speed rail. We're expecting and projecting for significant passenger load increasing in the Dearden Station over the next 20 to 30 years. That would make it one of the most heavily used rail stations in the West. So we're planning for those people is really what we're talking about here. So this is an overview that shows you the Dearden Station area. So in the yellow with red outline is what we're talking about. This is the Dearden Station planning area. And we're going to focus on this larger area first. So the yellow outline is from, there was a 2014 Dearden Station area plan, and we're amending it for 2020. And the 2020 amendment is shown in red. We're actually expanding the boundary of it slightly with the 2020 amendment. But so really, you know, this larger area, it's about 240 acres. And shown within this area is, and so for the next few slides, you're going to see us, we're really going to be focusing on this outer area. And then toward the end of the presentation, I'll show you some of what's here in this purple area. And this is the property that's owned by Google. So you can see that Google owns a significant piece of the Dearden Station area. So the draft Dearden Station area plan, you can find a copy of it online. It's here. So there are chapters that include an introduction to the work that's been done by staff, discussion of the future development, including land use, building heights, urban design, infrastructure, affordable housing, sections on open space and public life, and sections on mobility. And I'm just going to hit the highlights of a couple of these sections. And really what I'm focusing on is those areas of the plan that I think might be of most interest or value to those of you who are on the Urban Confluence teams, who might want some context for your project. I'm by no means giving a complete overview of this whole plan. So what we are looking at in round numbers is an increase in housing capacity of up to 13,000 housing units with a projected population increase of up to 25,000 residents. These are definitely draft numbers, but that's about where we are. About 75% of that area of that new development, residential development, we expect to be high rise. The Dearden Station area plan has had a significant amount of community engagement over a number of years that's been associated with it. So this slide actually is just outlining some of the results of the engagement and what staff heard from the community. We want to rely on the train station, high density. You know what, I'm going to back up for 1 sec. If it will let me go back. I just want to do one more thing here and just make sure everyone is oriented. Because north is to the top of this sheet. So this is where we're talking about Dearden Station. And this is the SAP Arena. And this is Arena Green. That is the subject of the Urban Confluence location. So that's why the train station becomes such an important part of this. So desired outcome of our land use is making sure that that train station takes full advantage, that the development around the train station takes full advantage of those transit improvements and creates walkable communities that are integrated with downtown, but are human scaled and accentuate public life. And I'm not going to read through all of these bullets on all of these slides, but this will get posted later for the public. One of the big changes and things that's happening in this area that will make it very different 10 to 20 years from now than it is currently is the ability to build high rise. So this is a recent change resulting from some changes in work with our airport. And those of you who are Arena Green or Urban Confluence contestants are aware of this, the height limitations that are presented by the airport. But these height limitations were recently increased. Your design documents that you've been given reflect these increased height areas, but it's made a big difference for the potential development community down here, where we start to be able to see high-rise buildings of up to 280 feet, 255 feet, 290 feet. So this is a significant change and will significantly increase the density of development and density of potential residential and commercial development in the area. And then as you move out toward the edges of the development area or the DSAP area, you see lower building heights as we transition down. So moving into public space, what we heard through the community outcomes in public space was 5 basic themes around safety and maintenance. People want to feel safe and they want well-maintained, clean spaces to be in. They wanted to see trail connectivity. And they wanted equity and access. They wanted to be able to get to these spaces and feel like they are for everybody and that they're available for anyone in the community to use regardless of their background. We heard a lot about the value of smaller spaces spread throughout rather than, kind of the suburban form of San Jose of, large, 5 and 10 acre parks. And I think you'll see this reflected in the plan. And the community encouraged think about new models of how we're going to maintain and activate these spaces. So if you look at the draft Dearden Station area plan, this is what you'll see. as the projected open space network. And the concept is you come out of Dearden Station and you're coming into very urban area. So we see hardscape plazas that we envision will have cafes and restaurant seating, art installations, kind of classic urban plaza that invites public life. And as you move further toward the east, toward Los Gatos Creek, you start to see a little more green space, and then you'd see trail connectivity along the corridor and a lot of green space, kind of more access to nature. And the further you move away to the south and to the north from the station, the more green the park space gets, right? And the more traditional it gets. And so with another entry plaza on West Santa Clara Street, which when you think about what I was mentioning earlier about that connectivity between the existing downtown and downtown west, this plaza plays an important role for folks as they come across West Santa Clara Street. So similar graphics, same layout, same concept, but now I'm showing the trail system. So I mentioned earlier that we have a trail gap from West San Carlos Street all the way to West Santa Clara. So we have been, through the Google project, there is proposal that there would be off-street trail alignment between San Carlos Street and Park Avenue. And then between San Fernando and West Santa Clara Street, there's a bit of on-road, but mostly off-road. The gap here, West San Fernando to Park Avenue, we would like to fill that in with off-street bike connection in the future. In the interim, it will be built out through on-street bike lanes. So the context, and we're going to talk about transportation in a minute, but the context of this whole area is very bikeable, pedestrian friendly. One of the things we are struggling with and still trying to understand is how to get across Santa Clara Street. Right now, the current plan calls for an at-grade crossing of Santa Clara Street. So this would be a fairly significant pedestrian crossing. Staff has proposed in the long run, we'd like to see a signature bridge flyover from San Fernando up to the Guadalupe River Park at Arena Green East. So at someday, our vision is that you'll be able to be biking north here and that you will start to rise and gradually come up and then be able to touch back down over here at Arena Green East and then continue traveling north to Alviso. It's a very, very conceptual. We're excited about that as a potential piece of infrastructure, but it's also a big piece of infrastructure and there's a lot of hurdles to it, but it was really important to us that we include it in the Dearden Station area plan. This segment is showing, so part of the high-speed rail project and Caltrain improvements call for raising the train tracks through this area. So from south of the Dearden Station area to the north, the tracks would become elevated. When that happens, we'd like to see park space underneath and linear pathway so that folks going to the train station can go make a straight north connector rather than coming out through the bike connections or the existing trail and then having to go back west. In terms of community on the transportation side, what the staff heard about in doing outreach for the Dearden Station area plan was pedestrian friendly streets, direct trail bike connections to Dearden, safe intersections, minimizing traffic congestion, enhancing transit and making transit easier to use and easier to access for everybody. In terms of transit, and again, this is for my folks that are in the urban confluence design teams, because you may want to look at some of this if you want to geek out on transit related improvements. We are right now talking about the Dearden Station area plan. We're going to talk in a moment about downtown west, but there's two other significant planning projects that if you just Google these names, you will find information on them. But DISC is the Dearden Integrated Station Concept Plan, which is the planning for a new rail station to support all of these proposed change in uses. and the downtown transportation plan, which is a broader study area that you see outlined here. Again, I only mention it here because the urban conflict finds some of this interesting as they think about their designs. This slide is just depicting what the proposed street network is. So you can see in orange spaces and roadways that are intended to be sort of high intensity, kind of primarily used for cars. Where we see the orange and brown spaces, roadways, bikes and pedestrians might be the more primary users. The green are we're looking at, and this is all thanks to my friends at DOT. I'm a park person. I'll just preface that right now, but these are all intended to be, they will have on-street bikeways and bike lanes for safe bike access. Okay, so that was Dearden Station area, and I know this is a lot of information, and I can come back to these slides when you have questions. And right now I'm wishing I'd put numbers on them. It would make your life easier when coming back to them. I'm going to flip now away from that larger planning area and focus more on the Downtown West project site. So remember earlier I mentioned, there's a larger planning area. Earlier it was outlined in yellow, now it's outlined in blue, and that's what we were talking about earlier. Now we're going to flip over and talk about this space highlighted in yellow. And this is the Downtown West project site. This is the property that's owned by Google. It's about 80 acres that we're going to talk about. So this is the Downtown West concept. So this orientation is a little bit different. So this is north over here to the right of the screen. This is SAP Center here. This is Arena Green, west, Confluence Point. And I'm trying to think of the best way to orient you. This is Los Gatos Creek running through. So, and this is just a conceptual unit. This is the scope of the proposed development that Google's planning for. And you can see a number of high-rise commercial buildings, 7.3 million square feet of office space, 4,000 housing units as a base with the potential for more in the future. About 500,000 square feet of active uses. This would be retail, maybe cafes, art buildings, and a series of public parks and plazas that run through the development area. Because the Google project is a master plan development and it will take a number of years to build out, there is a document, and it is a draft of it is available online, called the Downtown West Design Standards and Guidelines. And these guidelines have chapters that govern various types of uses within the space, and they set out design standards and expectations. So right now, and I'll talk about parks because it's what I'm most familiar with, we don't have detailed design of every park, and we don't know the final details of every element that will be in every park, but the design guidelines for each space that will be a park give us an idea and some information about what will be included and what the programming of the park might be and what the goal of that park space is. So again, I mentioned this for the urban confluence teams because I think, this is information that you might find helpful as you move forward and you're thinking about your design and its context. So similar look to the last one we had, their massing diagram. And here are some concepts that have come from them that Google has provided. These are purely concepts. These are from Google. They may change in the future, but at present, this is the idea and flavor of the type of development the strategy they're thinking about. This gives you a glimpse of potential future parkland with a crossing over Los Gatos Creek and interpretive panels and public space. Those of you who are local to San Jose would know the San Jose Water Company building. So the one plaza that I mentioned on Santa Clara Street, this is one of the view sheds of that plaza. And with that, I'm going to end the presentation and we can open it up to Q&A, and I can go back to any of those slides that if folks have questions or however we want to handle it.
Thank you, Nicole. I will ask you the questions and help you any way I can. A common question is, will this presentation be made available in PDF for future reference?
Yes, yes, we can. I want to wait. Oh, and I should have mentioned, especially for those of you who are local and just might be interested in the projects. There is on that website that I mentioned, the diridonsj.org, there's a lot of presentations from staff that have been given over the last 2 years. There's also on Monday at, I believe it starts at 1 o'clock, a city council study session that will cover this information and then some. So if folks have more interest, they can definitely tune into that. And yes, I can make this into a PDF and share it with the Urban Confluence team that they can post on their website. I need to get a couple of things checked on those Google concepts before I post it publicly.
Thank you, Nicole. How much of the quote unquote linear parks in the graphics are actually riparian corridor, that is usable, not activatable, or privately owned hardscape plazas? Neither of those should be shown as quote unquote linear parks. Nicole, does that question make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. And it's kind of a question, not necessarily for this forum. It is definitely a question that has come up, and it's come up a lot. And I assume it will come up at the study session on Monday. The open space that is proposed as part of the Downtown West project is a combination of property that will be owned by the city, property that will be owned by Google and be publicly accessible and open. And there is riparian corridor and there's riparian corridor setback included in those spaces. And of course, riparian corridor and riparian corridor setbacks come with certain limitations on what they can be used for and how, as you know, Steve, because you're experiencing it at Arena Green, how close you can be to the channel, what you can do for lighting, what you can't.
And I will assure anybody on this Zoom session that we have been incredibly careful with lighting and riparian corridor rules and biology. You can see the studies on our website. We continue to monitor those carefully and be respectful of all the environmental regulations associated with the river, the creek, and the park. Is the Urban Confluence design team aware that the city's developer standards for parks, 3 acres per 1,000 residents, would ordinarily call for 72 acres of usable parkland for just the new DSAP residents, but the proposal is to provide less than 20 acres, including hardscape plazas, riparian corridor, and the like? Nicole, does that one make sense, or would you like me to read it again?
No, it makes sense. And it is, I don't know if you're aware of that. I can't answer that question for you, but the facts as stated are true. The DSAP calls for 19 acres of new parkland. And it is true. I mean, everything that was said there is correct, that as we look at new development, our goal is 3 acres of parkland per 1,000 new residents. And so, yeah, but that goal can be, yeah. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. It doesn't influence your project. It doesn't influence the competition.
That's what I was about to say. If the questioner would like to call me and chat about this later, of course, I'm available for anyone whose questions are not answered today. I'm very easy to find by going to our website. My phone number and email address are there. Will the Urban Confluence design be able to handle the inevitable number of users that the 52-acre deficit will create? Nicole, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does. It does. And so it's a great question. I think we won't know that until we have a design for Urban Confluence. I think it's something I'm mindful of and something I spend a lot of time thinking about. You know, how do we craft the Urban Confluence projects so that they are not, or project, so it maintains usable green park space, right? And this is something we've talked with as a team about, right? And you've heard me say this before, you know, Arena Green is the living room of this area. And it needs to have green space available. And I think that, you know, at this point, all 3 designs, you know, afford that opportunity as we move into design. We just need to be mindful of it.
I will remind all of the attendees on this call that we, Urban Confluence, have been working hand in hand with the Parks Department and the Guadalupe River Park Conservancy. We also have regular monthly meetings with SPUR, the Downtown Association, the Sharks, Little Italy, and other important stakeholders to make sure that we're respecting all the important people who are related to Arena Green. And of course, I'm always available to talk to any of you if you've got ideas or suggestions. Nicolle, how will future SAP parking impact Arena Green?
To the best of my knowledge, it will not. There is no SAP center parking proposed at, under, or on Arena Green at this time.
I agree with that from everything that I know. Another question, does the bike bridge from San Fernando Street into Arena Green East impact the development on Del Mas and Santa Clara and impact Urban Confluence?
I don't see it impacting Urban Confluence, and the reason it remains a very high level planning proposal is because it may, right? We don't know the exact route yet, but it will likely go over private property that is owned by the Google team. And so they're aware of our interest in this, and we are very aware of the property ownership challenges that it presents. So I think we've all agreed it's in the document and we want to keep thinking about it, but we know it's a long-term vision.
Thank you, Nicolle. How much of the new Diridon Station area park and open space acreage does PRNS want to manage? For the remainder, is PRNS open to privately managed public spaces?
The current proposal for the Downtown West project is for 4.8 acres of city-owned and dedicated parkland. So those are the spaces that will look, smell, walk, talk like a traditional city park. It also, well, in that 4.8 includes 2 segments of trail that would be managed by the city. The remaining 10.2 acres will be retained in private ownership is the expectation, and the exact functionality of that and rules and requirements of that are still being discussed. We are still working through those with the developers team.
Thank you, Nicolle. Those of you on the call, I don't have any other questions. If you have any final questions, could you please put them into the Q&A and we will try to answer them.
I'm going to stop sharing if that's okay. Is that a...
Sure, Nicolle.
Okay.
I would just like to reiterate from the perspective of the Urban Confluence team that we have really worked hard over the last 3 to 4 years to be good partners with PRNS. We've worked with the City Council. We've had 2 unanimous approvals. We're also working with Guadalupe River Park Conservancy constantly, and we are every day doing outreach to the community. We are trying to build a gift to our city. We'd like all of you to be enthusiastic supporters and partners of us in doing this, and the way we get it right is by having input. So we very much appreciate all of you joining us on this call today. Another question, is there coordination required between any of the Google Park areas or buildings and the Urban Confluence effort?
I think the coordination focuses more between Diridon Station area and Urban Confluence, right? And how does Urban Confluence fit in the overall open space plan of the Diridon area? Because I work with all the parties, right? With the Google team, with our folks in planning, and with the Urban Confluence team, and with Guadalupe River Park Conservancy. You know, me and my staff definitely are mindful and aware and considerate of how all of these pieces work together and influence together.
What I'll say on behalf of John Ball, Christine Davis, and me, the Urban Confluence team, is that we try to be proactive and consider all of the ramifications of our project. And Nicolle has been hugely helpful in helping us know what issues we might want to work on. So we appreciate you asking questions and helping us look into the future and answer these questions. After all, Google, Diridon Station, the other developments nearby, including Adobe, are all trying to do the same thing, which is build a great city. And we want to be a respectful and good partner in that effort.
There's one more question here, Steve, about the linear park under the raised tracks. Is that part of the city's 4.8 acres? And it's not.
Thank you, Nicolle. Any other questions that any of the attendees would like to ask? That being said, John Ball, would you like to make some comments?
I was getting some private communication that I was being too quiet. So I just want to thank everybody for their interest. Thanks for your hard work. Nicolle, thank you for being here. Mike, thanks for making things work on this. And last call for questions.
And I would certainly invite, the three, your three finalists, if they have, other questions offline, they can always, of course, email you guys, and I can get them answers if they want more information. But a lot of it is available online. So by all means, I hope they are able to spend that time to dig in and think about it. Because I'm excited to see how they perceive it all comes together.
Right.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Sure.
So thank you all for attending today. This is not the end of anything. You can call me or email me anytime, and I will get answers to your questions. So with that, I'll thank everyone for participating and hope to see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.